So how did I get to a point where I could allow that much money or charge that much money? That's a really good question, Nat. I've been in business for 13 years. So part of it is practice, right? But the other part of it is a lot more nuanced than that. So I'm going to try to break it down, even though I haven't necessarily broken this down formally before.
Sure.
The first part is a traditional coaching tool, which is lightness, right? Like in coaching, if you're feeling that something is heavy or ponderous, the tool is, okay, how can you lighten it up? Like, what does that look like? How can you gamify it? How can you make it not as important?
Mm-hmm.
And so I would actually point to one of the first big corporate engagements I had, which was so crazy. It was like almost 10 years ago. And it was such a big job that I kind of was like, oh, I'm just going to throw out some numbers. Lightness, right? Play.
Yeah.
Trying to see what just happens, what's possible. And I threw out numbers that I thought were so gargantuan that they were like never going to go for it. And I got zero pushback. So I basically pitched, 3 trainings at $15K a training, and then follow-up work at $10K a month retainer. That's a lot of money, right?
Yeah.
And now it doesn't seem like that much money, but I needed to try it out. So I think lightness is the first thing. So if there's heaviness, you've got to bring a game to it. Now, one thing that happens when we're talking about money is that ego parts can think that it's a life or death scenario. And it's almost never a life and death scenario, but it can feel that way. So if you have to like get really, really present to today. So I had this coach ages ago named Victoria Moran. She's written, 12 books. And she talks a lot about veganism now, but she was a women's coach years ago. And I hired her because I read her book at Barnes & Noble. And I was like, this is great. I want her to coach me. And I remember being worried about money because that's like been a theme of my life. And Victoria was like, well, do you have enough money in your account today to pay for your bills today? And I was like, yeah, I do. And she's like, so you're fine. And I was like, oh, I guess I am. And so I think when we get back to the very present of, okay, is this life and death? It's not. Do I have enough money to pay my bills today? I do. Okay. We have that security, that baseline security, because usually when we start to get scared about money, it's because we're going automatically to worst case scenario of like, I'm rolling around in the gutter with a newspaper to cover me. And it feels life and death. It feels heavy.
Right.
So we have to bring lightness to it. We have to get very clear about what is true. If we do have enough money to pay our bills, or if we do not, if it is life and death. And then we also have to play out to the scenario of utter and complete failure so that we can grasp it and say, okay, so utter and complete failure, disaster happens. And then what? Then what do I do? And if we give ourselves permission to go that far, usually we come back with oh, but I've got this because I'm not going to get to that point. And if I do, then I will do da, 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 da. So when you allow yourself to then play out the scenario and face the scenario, then you're like, oh, okay. When it comes to money and charging, I think the concept of voice dialogue and parts work is super important because there's a part of you that's freaking out about your having more money. So talk to that part and say, yo, what is your deal? What is holding you back from wanting me to have more money? Because there's something there, right? It's very tangible. I've been working with a money coach, and it's funny because we are good. We have a lot of assets in the millions range, and we have regular income. And I've never in my life, and not that we don't have crazy shit going on. I don't even want to get into the tax bill we got for a investment property that ended up being more than what my husband's take-home salary is in a year. Right? So we have problems that are money related, and And I have never in my life felt that I am more capable of creating wealth than now.
Mm.
And I've never in my life felt so inspired to do that than now.
Wow.
And it's really an awesome place to be. Now, I started working with a money coach because I felt like I didn't have enough clarity about where my money was going and how I was spending it, and if I was spending in alignment with my values. I was just spending on default. And so that became very important to me, to want to align what my goals are with my spending habits, and that wasn't happening. So I felt like I needed outside resources to help me on that. My husband and I are very transparent about spending and money, but I also felt like I needed an external person to help me create habits that I felt were more in alignment with what I want down the road. Now, back to the question of how can you charge so much? So a couple principles of pricing are that people will pay if they see value.
Mm-hmm.
So there are some people who would never spend more than like $25 on a pair of shoes or a pair of jeans. But every day people are spending $300 on jeans and $1,200 on shoes every damn day, because they see value to themselves or for themselves in that purchase, right? So they're willing to spend that. Services are even more definable by that concept of, if people see value, then they will spend money. And I've certainly spent, I mean, my husband and I were talking about it the other night, we're sort of doing a tally, and I've definitely spent over 100K on like various like coaching and marketing programs. Most of them were complete and utter bullshit. To be frank. So it's made me even more intent on creating massive value and then assigning the appropriate price to that. So I have to be very comfortable with the value I'm providing in order to name a price that people think is quote unquote high.
Mm.
So for me, when I'm thinking about value, I think about actual revenue that my clients will derive from the work we do together. So for example, if I am charging $5,000 for something, I want that experience to yield for the client 5 to 10x of that price.
Mm.
So that means that I've got to know that even if they sort of like don't hit it out of the park, that they can do like 25 to 50K because of the work that we do. And that's in year one. But I also know that sometimes people will show up more when they pay more. So sometimes you use pricing in a psychology way to get people to show up. So for example, when I've had clients who are the CEOs of billion-dollar organizations or politicians or whatever, I don't charge them $200 an hour. I charge them $2,000 an hour, because that's what they need to show up, because it creates value for them.
Mm-hmm.
In a very like intangible engagement, because those engagements weren't about revenue driving, right? They were about something else. So so there's a psychology piece to charging. Sometimes the work you're doing is life-changing. Like you literally can't put a value on it. And then like the sky's the limit personally. If you want to charge 60K for that experience, charge 60K. When I was first getting started in coaching, I knew eating disorder recovery. So I was working with people on eating disorder recovery. And a woman like reamed me out for having the gall to charge $250 a month for 4 sessions.
Uh-huh.
And I was like, okay, lady. So she clearly and it was for her daughter or something, or a niece or whatever, but she didn't see the value. And she also didn't value the result enough to see that, my God, if this works, this is fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we have to be very clear to ourselves about how much our work is worth to the client,
Mm-hmm.
and also how much has actually gone into that, right? Like at this point, so I have a career that spans 13 years of really in the trenches experience. I have no problem putting big old price tags on things. And because they get so much from that 13 years of experience, right? In addition to whatever program that I've created that is very specific. Now, when it comes to pricing, it is also very arbitrary in many cases. And I'm actually, I don't know when, because I'm always like, I have a million courses I want to roll out, but I really have to refine the ones that already exist first. I think that's more important. But I do want to do a course on how to make your service business a luxury brand, because I've always operated from, except for at the very, very beginning, I've operated from a level of like, my prices are here and I'm not going to go lower.
Right.
And it's about being a luxury brand. Like, I am not for everybody. I'm not trying to be for everybody. And it's fine if you think I'm ridiculous and expensive. I'm okay with that. It's not for everyone. And so I am going to roll out a training, what it looks like to create a service-based business that is a luxury brand, and how do you engineer that, and what does that mean, and what do you do as a result, and what does client experience look like, all that stuff. But because it's not just about the dollars. Like, when you go to Hermes and you explore their world, one of my old clients in Fort Lauderdale, she didn't bring any of her Hermes bags with her to dinner, but she pulled out all these tiny little leather, like, they're petits trous. They're these like little things that are like these leather pouches, and she has one for lipstick, and she has one for her credit cards, and she has one for, I don't know what, but like, she has all these little leather. Oh, she takes a lot of meds because she was hit by a car. So she had one for her pills. Okay, so she had all these little things, and she's like, she was actually hit by a car twice. And it's been it's changed her life completely. And so she was like, there's not a lot in my life that is perfect. She's like, but these are perfect. Hermes is perfect. And it's because they love and embrace their craftsmanship so much. And when you start to explore that world, like, it's a huge part of the brand, and it's a huge part of the experience. It's a huge part of their luxury is perfection. And so that doesn't have to be an element of every luxury brand, but like, it's really inspiring. Especially, they just released a video about their, it was a saddlery. They made saddles for horses, and they have this entire segment of their business that's around saddles for elite riders. It's fascinating, right? There's this entire like ecosystem just around saddlery, okay, and like halters and bridles, and it's beautiful. It's sport. It's competition. It's perfection, right? So anyway, I think there's so much more meat to just like charging high prices. That's not what I'm saying. There are a lot of people who charge high prices, and I think you should be from them.
Yeah, I completely get that. I had the opportunity recently. I was down in Miami, and we stayed at the Mandarin Oriental. And the service there was just like, I keep talking about it with everyone because it just made such an impression on me, on how attentive and proactive they were.
Yeah, those are two really lovely words. So I think, so that was a really long answer to a question about pricing, but I think pricing is very nuanced and multi-layered. I have a couple articles that I've written about pricing on my site, but other sites too, that I can send you. Because I think it's a very personal thing. Every business owner decides where they want to sit in that pricing hierarchy. And it's a lot about your family too. And it's a lot about what you're creating. So as far as your own personal resistance to pricing, I think some people need to take a ladder up, and they need to go rung by rung by rung by rung. They cannot go from charging whatever $50 an hour to $500 an hour. They can't. They don't have the capacity, the scaffolding, the internal scaffolding to support that, right? And that means that they need the experience of business at those rungs in order to get to that point. There are other people who don't. And I don't know the psychology behind why that is the case. Sometimes those people are full of shit. And sometimes those people have rightly the scaffolding that will support that growth, right? So I think, again, you have to really know yourself and do some excavation there to see, okay, can I bump it up 100? Do I bump it up? Like what feels comfortable, what feels doable? And then also, again, dovetail in, bring in the parts work, because the parts work has something to do with money for sure and pricing for sure. And you might have more buddies showing up in your parts work than you might expect. But pricing is it's a biggie, and it's not, there's no magic, like there's no magic price, like this is going to work or this is not going to work. And I'll give you an example. So a lot of people out there believe that you should have tripwires. Do you know what that is?
Yeah.
Okay. Tripwires, which are the low priced, $547, $5 whatever. Like some people's tripwires are a little more expensive, but they're cheap, like usually under $10. And then you need this whole another ladder of prices so that you have what they call low commitment. I don't buy any of this stuff. That's why I keep putting it in quotes. So you need low commitment stuff. And I told myself the lie that I needed low commitment stuff. Nobody wants my low commitment stuff.
Yeah.
Nobody. People. But when I sold someone on a $7,500 program, she was like, I thought this was going to be a lot more. And
Nice.
she was ready to pay the higher price, right? That she had in her head. So nobody wants my low commitment stuff. Shannon and I had the same conversation. Nobody wants her cheap stuff. They want the goodies. They want the big shit. And so we have to laugh because, the conventional wisdom of you need low commitment offers to get people engaging with you and getting to know you is just, I think, false. And if people want the results, they will pay. If they want the results and the experience, they will pay. So that was a lot of.
No, but all very helpful. I can see for myself that when I'm engaging with someone, I also don't like the low commitment stuff. When I'm purchasing from someone else, because that stuff never worked for me.
Interesting. Okay. So maybe we're seeing the market go into segments, right? Maybe we're seeing the market segment itself and say the people who are committed don't care about low commitment price points. They just want the results, right?
Yeah.
And they're willing to pay whatever it takes to get those results. And then the rest of the people can go have fun with their stupid tripwires. and $97 this or that.
Right.
So, all right.
Cool.
I'm down with that.
Yeah.
I know which segment I want to be in.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that program you mentioned, making a service business a luxury brand, that really spoke to me.
Cool. Well, I don't know where it's going to go on the calendar, but I have so many things to roll out. But it's something that I've been thinking about for years. I keep out all my notes in Evernote, and I've had that kicking around for about 4 years. It's got a lot of modules already. So one of these days, I'll have to talk to my team, see what they think about throwing in another program rollout. In the meantime, I've got a couple other fish to fry, but I love new things. So anywho, well, Nat, it's lovely to see you to hear you.
Thank you, Lauren. It was great to connect and learn so much from you today.
Well, I hope that it helped. So I'm going to send you some links to pricing articles, and I'm also going to send you a link to parts work and how to do it.
Okay.
Okie dokie.
Sounds great. Thank you.
If you have any questions, just shoot me an email. But I look forward to seeing what happens with your retreats.
Okay. I'll keep you updated.
And also for selfish reasons, I have never hosted that's not true. I have hosted a retreat, but I hosted it at my house. But I'm going to host a retreat next year. So I'm also in the process of overcoming the negative Nellies to get over the hump into the planning phase. I'm right there with
Awesome.
you.
All right, cool.
Okay. Have a good afternoon.
Thank you. Bye for now.
Bye.